Yes.
Okay, welcome back everyone for the Q&A sessions after the two performances, digital performances. You just saw the chorus and audio experience and Proteus Solo's piece of memory. We have here members from the teams from UK and from Austria. And I would like us to lead this conversation in two parts. First, I would like us to speak a little bit about the performances, of course. And second, I would like us to try to think through what does this new digitality mean to us. Did we adapt fast, but do we really accept this new way of functioning, or how many people did we reach? Did we meet our goal concerning the audience, and so on and so on? For everyone who is watching on YouTube, you can comment about the performances or pose your questions on the live chat beside the link. So, hello everyone. I'm so glad to see you again.
Yep.
Okay, you're all here. Great. First, I would like to say that the only performance I didn't saw live, like a live performance, was Beneath the City, the third part of Orestea, the part that the British team worked on. And I have to say that one of the biggest regrets is that we didn't go to the premiere in Birmingham last year just because we were afraid that we would not get a British visa or we will get it only once, and didn't want to risk for later for the tour that was supposed to happen later in the autumn. And your live performance was the only one of the four parts that engaged so many chorus members. Like somehow all of us others decided to compress somehow the number of chorus participants from practical reasons, of course. And I really regret missing that opportunity to see chorus and in all its glory of massiveness, how to say, compared to our small crews. So I wanted to ask, like, all of you, how hard was it for you to translate all that collective life energy to the virtual space? And how did you compress everything into digital 20 minutes? What did it mean to all of you, especially to the members who like depend on going live, like the performers or like I don't know, the Lucy Wilde, the movement director, everything that means going live. What did it mean to you to transfer into the digital space?
Such a big question. I so wish you guys could have seen the work that that Kerry and Takir and Lucy had pulled together for Birmingham, and the rest of the chorus as well. It's such what we've seen tonight and heard tonight is such a different beast than the show that we made for Birmingham. And I guess one reason for that is in some ways it's a much smaller project. So like Lucy, for example, who had done so much work in making Beneath the City, wasn't part of the making of the audio project. And we lost, and similarly, Astrid Behrens and Claire Brown, who'd done the design work together, or the visual design work, weren't a part of our audio work. And I think, I don't know about Kerry and Takir, but I missed so much when we were making the audio project, like so much of that joy of like the physical and the visual. One of the great sort of beautiful things about Beneath the City was seeing 20 people moving together. And one of the crazy things about rehearsing Beneath the City was working on getting 20 people moving together. But so much of the power of that show came from like all that work that you guys really, just did amazingly. So yeah, it felt for me like what we were trying to do with the audio experience was to condense one of the aspects of Beneath the City, which was the chorus, which was Kerry and Takir and the rest of the group, and like pulling your voices and your thoughts together, which was quite a big part of Beneath the City. So in Beneath the City, we had several moments where we cut away to video of everybody speaking in their own voices, and then we kind of took aspects of that and essentially made a whole other show out of them, really. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, Lucy, just passing that question on to you, I guess. Sort of seeing and hearing like what we've seen and heard tonight. Like, how does it compare for you with the theatre-based work, the live work?
It's really interesting because as Tom said, I wasn't involved in the audio project because obviously my role is making people move, and that wasn't what this project was about. But I absolutely agree with you. You can see, I think you can, like, the sort of rawness and the truthfulness and the honesty and the realness that was in Beneath the City physically, I think comes across in the audio project. I think it has a real, it really shows off the talent of you guys. I think that's what's amazing, is that you've got completely different shows in how they're presented, but they draw you in and you really are engaged in your stories and what you're saying and the way you're saying it. And I think that's something that carries across both. And I'd hope that the process in making the first show really helped people to discover, more about their voice and become more confident with kind of sharing that and being part of a project. And I guess for someone like, I don't know, Takir, if you like want to talk about it, or Kerry, about, because you've got different experiences. I think you both had very different experiences of the first show. It'll be interesting to know what you guys felt in comparison of the first to the second. Because I'm biased. I just came on and listened to the audio project and thought it was brilliant. But I think you are fantastic. So maybe from a perspective of you guys having been in it, how you found it, because the physicality was a huge part of the first show, and very different in audio project. Do one of you guys want to chip in?
Kelly, should I go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things I found about it is, as somebody who's new to theatre, this was my first performance, it was kind of, I was learning and growing just through the performance and learning more about myself. And there's one thing which I've learned is when we talk about things about democracy and justice, we kind of say this is it, this is democracy and this is justice. But as you realize that where does it come from? It comes from ideas. It comes from inside ourselves, and so does emotion. So when we were moving and to our bodies and we could feel the tension, we could feel the passion, the anger, the sadness, and we could feel that, and all of a sudden it was quite powerful. And that kind of power, to try to be the Fury and think like them, it's just overwhelming, and you start to realize that that it's kind of how what we think of something is very much kind of from ourselves, but specifically surrounding the kind of the movement. What I found interesting is that how kind of how movement speaks for itself, and sometimes as you guys hear the phrase the voice for the voiceless, that there's many people in a society, marginalized communities, that may not be able to speak or hear yet, but just through the very kind of existence, through the facial movement, you can get this sense of they're still there, they're being. And so just through the Fury, we're kind of expressing that kind of collective voice for the voiceless. So I think I found it really, really interesting, and how it compared to audio. I think it was completely different, but I think as you saw, you could still feel the energy and the passion from the audio, which was coming from all of us. But because we were not there collectively, you wouldn't feel that energy as the viewers and that relationship that people who came to see us would also feel, that human connection. You know, we're talking over Zoom, so the only energy that we would feel is from within ourselves. But I think you know, just big contrast, but yeah, just share those few thoughts with you.
I mean, Takir said a lot. I mean, for me, I have performed a number of times, and it was chalk and cheese. I mean, I joined the Birmingham Rep because my experience is more in traditional plays on stage or film, where basically I learn a script, I work against another actor, and I'm very much solitary. And the experience of working as an ensemble to create the Furies, for me, was an interesting experience. I actually felt more nervous and more worried about wanting to make sure that I worked as one with them than actually when I'm on stage. I mean, I've done Shakespeare on stage where I've been the only one on stage, therefore everything is down to me. No worries. I was with that group and I wanted to be support and not let anybody down. I found that more nerve-wracking. The exercises Lucy did with us on, this is all part of when we were doing the workshops to go towards the Beneath the City, where we were all individual yet working as one, how we moved across the space, almost like eels in a river, where we were all intertwining, being one. So it appeared as though we were going in different directions, but when you saw us as a whole, we were moving in the one direction. And in that one direction, we're also then looking to work out when we had the discussions about democracy. So it was very much in that performance of questioning each other, questioning what it was, and then bringing the audience in to show how difficult a question it is. So for me, that experience, that Beneath the City production, was an incredible production to build up on, and how the audience felt part of it, because we would ask them questions. It's a case of, okay, we've got to this point. Is this person right? Is this person wrong? Is this person guilty? Is this person innocent? Do we blame them totally? Do we not? And it shows the complexities of it all. The audio project, which was done different. Again, I've performed in audio projects in my language and in English and in other languages where I've been given scripts in different elements. And that was more me. I mean, I purposely try to flatten my voice in order to say, these are my personal experiences. So what you're hearing there, I mean, I loved Eddie. If you listen back to it, anybody gets a chance to, one of our ensemble piece, Eddie, he defines what oppression was. And he makes the point that if you define oppression one way, I'm not oppressed. But if you take the alternative definition from the dictionary, then he said, I am oppressed. And if you took that alternative definition, I remember when he did it the first time, I'm going, I come under that because of my personal background, but it's not in the same way. I know the oppressions that Takir and Takir's family will have had totally different from mine and totally different from the others. You heard a little bit of the discussion slightly getting heavier between Eddie and Sharon. Now, Eddie and Sharon are two Black people. Sharon's my age, born and grew up in Birmingham, unlike me, but we've got similar reference points. And having similar reference points, then we know certain things that have happened. Eddie's younger, and therefore have some slightly different ones. And you can see that come out. And we're very tight with each other. We're very defensive of each other, which is part of work I think Lucy did. We've become a very tight unit, and we still talk to each other. We communicate with each other. We get together on Zoom meetings, and we trust that we can say what we want to without being judged between each other. So for me, those two projects have done a wonderful thing by doing that. And I hope some of that comes over, where you've seen part of us through the audio, and it's a shame some of you didn't see the live version, because I think you'd have seen a broader scope of what we investigate and try to put over.
Oh, we just hope that one day we will have the opportunity to see it live. And thank you all for your answers. I could just enjoy listening to you forever. Like, you speak all so beautifully. And Ivica, would you like to continue with?
Yeah, I will just ask some questions. I have some questions to Christian shortly, just to jump to both performances. I really like, I just want to say that I really like both of the all the 4 performances, but I will speak for last 2 that we watched today. I really like the diversity of them. It's one, it's a audio work, but it's not a, it's not a radio drama, but it's something in between, and I really like it, and I really like the atmosphere with the music and with all the talks inside. It's a very unique and interesting for me. And also Christian video film, it's quite unique, and I will ask Christian first, how did you decide to make this kind of video film out of your performance, because your performance is totally different out of that?
I guess the problem was that that when we heard about the fact that we should come up with a digital version, whatever that means, because I think digital is a little bit confusing, because digital, from my point of view, you would mean something that is kind of digital interactive, like a video game or something like that, like a movie, or just a representation, or even an audio audio work is not really digital. It's like you can call it differently. You could call it a radio play, or you could call it a movie or a film or a documentary. But digital, I guess, refers to the fact that it's possible to show it online. I think that was the meaning of digital in that context. So we obviously, and I had made a few shows at the very beginning of the pandemic in March already, where we streamed 30 different shows of a series online. And so I had this experience already of putting something on the internet. In this case, it was live streamed, and there was even some interaction between the audience and the actors on stage through in-ear monitoring pieces where they could communicate with each other. So that worked quite well. But to be honest, I got quite not bored, but kind of, I had done it. I'd been there, done that, and so I didn't want to do something similar again. That was, I guess, the only reason not to think about how could we film the performance. How could we bring the performance into a movie format, let's say, with cameras on stage and all the performers involved on stage, to bring it into the internet. So, and then I said, why, if we have this, let's take it as an opportunity, and let's make a movie. Let's make a real movie. Let's make something that is within the possibility of the time frame, which is like 1-2 months after the premiere, which was in October. So we knew we had to do it quickly, and we knew we had not so much money that you would normally have for a feature film. And I always wanted to do an ideal in this kind of work anyways is like the mockumentary, or the fictionalized documentary. And I So I think it was like 2 days after the premiere, which was in October. We were the last ones to have the premiere in October, or was it, no, September? Was it September? I don't remember. September, October, and I think it was October. And then 2 days after the premiere, I wrote the script for this fake documentary, or this mockumentary, which claims to be a real story of the lost piece of the Oresteia, the satire play. And yeah, and so we just went out and filmed it and cut it, and in beginning of February, it was finished. So that was a very quick turnaround, which is not normally so usual for a film, which is about 35 minutes long. So we were very quick, and I think the biggest difference, because we were talking about difference early on, and maybe to make a bit more general point, is because not many people would have seen the performance in Graz, and maybe but they have seen the online version now, but they don't know what would be different. But I think what's different in general about these things, online versus live, is that from my point of view, the interesting part for a live version is that you are present in a room where somebody has to bring up an attention span of 1 hour or 1 hour and a half, 1.5 hours. So what I mean about that is that there is an actor on stage or a performer on stage who has to be present for 1.5 hours, and he has to have an attention span of 1.5 hours, which is not so easy. I mean, for professional actors, this might be their business, but for people who are who are not professional actors, and we worked with non-professional actors, as I assume that the British team as well did, from what I heard about the performance, is that the special thing is to watch people, let's call them untrained people, in untrained actors, to watch them for a longer time period, to be on stage live. And that is different to a version that is pre-produced, which means you have the opportunity to cut, you can edit stuff. So this is very different to a live version. And this might sound banal, but I think this is a really key thing to speak about differences, and what's the interesting thing about something live versus something which has been produced and put online. And is always the same. There's no mistakes. I mean, unless the internet breaks down or there's some connection errors. In our performances, the audio and our documentary, the fourth part, there is no errors. There's no way this could go wrong. And in the performance, a lot of things can go wrong, and even more things can go wrong when the people do this for the first time in their life, maybe. And that is really something very interesting, and that's will always be difficult to reproduce on an internet setting which is not live streamed. And even if it's live streamed, I think there might be mistakes, obviously, but we as an audience don't know if this is true. So what we see on the screen is always more fixed and more finished than something that is right in front of our eyes. And I think that's what the question, what you asked in the very beginning, is what do we think is the possibilities in these kind of works, is digital formats. I think at the moment we do it very poorly. I think at the moment we do it. We have to do it. We try to find ways, and we use it as we always wanted to do a movie, or we always wanted to do a radio play or an audio performance about something, which is perfectly fine, I think. But to be honest, if we really would have to find a way to engage in a very similar way that is the stage, then I think we would have to find something very different and something very, very unique, which I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen online or in throughout this whole year. I haven't seen anything that is really a suitable substitute for the life experience. I haven't seen it. Maybe there is something. I'm sure there is something out there, and I'm afraid we have to find something. somehow, because there might be situations in the future where we got thrown back to this, where we have to do this again through something like the internet. Maybe there's something else than the internet, I don't know, but this is not yet the solution, I think. But it is I think it's a good way of communicating with each other, and it's a good way of communicating about the not being able to do it yet. I think it's a good way to try it and to maybe realize, maybe we have to try it and realize this is not yet the best thing we can come up with, I think. Sorry, I don't want to be negative, or I don't want to be in any way kind of not approving of our works, because I think it's really great what we've done in such a critical time where we have to immediately come up with new ideas and be very quick. And obviously, it's very difficult to be highly inventive within a very short span of time. So yeah.
Yes, actually, what we saw here was like the capitalistic logic of the, how to say, algorithms, that the power of social digital capital you own, such as followers, subscribers, readers, viewers, clicks, posts. So the more you own this, the more visible you are. And what was the internet was supposed to be this democratic platform, like the promise of some kind of democracy, that everybody would have like the same chance, but the only thing we saw was this, like it just turned into this capitalistic logic again and again.
Yeah, and I will just add something for your performance. How reflects on me, especially this. I like this repetitiveness of the schwenk shot, of the pound shot from left to right and opposite, and I like it because it reminds me like I reading a book. so it was always like, I go from left to right. Also, you have schwenks from left to right to left. But that reminds me somehow that, I forgot something. I need to just go back and see what I missed on that page, or I need to go back on this page. So it was really interesting to me, and because you choose this similar but in the same way, very scientific, very it's a real sign that help us somehow to this video digital work remind us on somehow something lively, so like remind us of reading a book or something else, especially because you just have paysages. I don't know, only the landscapes and small actions in the shots, and it was, for me, it was like reading a book or some small text about that, and I really like that.
Yeah, thank you. No, and I think it's also what I have to add, maybe in terms of adding to the same conversation, because I think it's interesting in this kind of format to talk about the digital formats in general. I think is maybe the biggest difference is for the movie is that that the movie is a work by more or less a single person, because it's a script, it's somebody. I cut it together with the editor, but it's very easy to it's not easy, but it's easier to make these decisions in a room in front of a computer than in a room with people, with participants. So I think this is and so for me, I like movie making. I do it a lot, but I think it's the same. At the same time, it's a very egoistic kind of way of making something. Obviously, the moment when you shoot a movie, there is a big group of people, especially when you have an ensemble and you have actors, which we don't have in this anyway. But even then, I think because the cuts are so important, how you cut a movie, and you can change the meaning of a movie so much. about cutting, and this is normally 1 or 2 people, especially in smaller movies, making decisions. And in a play where you rehearse for like 8 weeks or something like that, you make more collaborative decisions. Even if you have a director who might be the guy or the woman who is in charge of it all, there is nevertheless the energy in the room is very different than when you shoot something. Especially in our case, we shot it like with not many actors involved. There were a few actors or some stooges, I would call them, involved in the making of these movies, but there's not there. There's just I wrote down where the shots should happen, and then we went there, we shot it there, and it's exactly according to script. There's nothing. There is no how should I say, there's no luck or no coincidences. There is just what was in the script. We shot it exactly like that, and it looks a bit like coincidence because it looks like as if we had driven around the country for a few weeks and just put our camera somewhere and did the panning from here to there, and then decided which images we put into the movie. But this is not the case. We did exactly the number of shots we needed for the movie. We knew exactly how long it was going to be. We knew exactly in which shot should be there a balloon going up. We knew exactly when should there be somebody with a bicycle driving past, when should there be a car, which song should be played in the car at which time. There's no coincidences. So from this point of view, this is a very egoistical way of making a movie, because you decide everything in the script and you do it exactly like that. And the stooges, you pay them a little bit, then you say to them, go from here to there, and that's it. Then you cut it in a small room with your editor, and then you put it out there, and that's done. And there's no, and so from that point, as an artist, this is very satisfying because there is no compromises. But at the same time, for me, I prefer somehow, even though it's maybe more complicated, I prefer the collaborative moment, to do something with other people together and not just by myself. And as an experiment, this is very interesting, but if I could, I would like to do it differently in the future. Maybe come back once in a while to this kind of egoistical format.
Great.
If I can, sorry, if I can add a little. Sorry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
I was just going to add to that. I mean, these days I do more screen work than I do theatre work, and it is different. As an actor doing screen work, we are a very small cog. I honestly think we're not important. We learn our lines, turn up. We don't normally, unless you are working with somebody like Mike Lee or Debbie Islett, UK directors, who can afford to have the time to have the actors develop. You basically learn the lines and the director expects you to come fully formed. You just do the lines, go away. And then you hope in the edit, it's going to come out fine because you generally don't know. One director I worked with, and I was asking him, shall I do it this way or that way? He says, it doesn't matter, Kerry, because I says, I'll show you. And I said, I want you to do this one line. And he filmed me and I said, I want you to be as flat a face as possible. No emotions, nothing, just say the line. And then he very quickly put different soundtracks and different lighting artificially on the 3 scenes. And he made me look funny, evil, and just generally upset. And it's the same piece of film, that it's all in the editing. Whereas on stage, that's when I come alive, because no 2 performances are the same, because you feed off the audience. And when you can feel that emotion coming from the audience, when you do a line and you have an audience that may give you one reaction different from the night before, it feeds the way you do the next line. And when I do dramas, I absolutely adore that. I wish it paid better, but I absolutely love doing it. that's why theatre for me is my love, but screen pays the bills.
Since this is like our official live activity of the Chorus project, live digital activity of the Chorus project, I would like to ask one question for all of you that I want answers from all of you. I would like answers from all of you. And that comes from Christian's performance. I would like to ask you, what do you think that the memory of our generation, of our times, would be when we grow old?
Yeah, you can go.
Oh, it's such a good question. This year, I think everyone is going to remember this year for the rest of their lives. And we're all going to remember it in slightly different ways, depending on where we were in our lives when it happened. But I think, the generation of all of us, and, we're a range of ages on this call and within the project, but like, we are all the people who lived through the pandemic, and I hope that it will be the pandemic and not the first pandemic of the 21st century. I kind of think, I know that this time will have some really happy memories for me. I got engaged. My nephew was born. There's all sorts of like beautiful things that I'll remember from this time when I'm old. But I'll also remember, that this was a time of like deep social division that was made worse by the twin car crashes of Brexit and the coronavirus pandemic. I think people will be writing about the year 2020, 2021 in the history books of the 22nd century, because it's the time when, like right now, like literally right now, there are vigils happening on people's doorsteps in the United Kingdom because a woman was murdered by a Metropolitan Police officer, allegedly, recently, and the police have banned protests about that, and that people in this country are standing on their doorsteps right now to protest that ban. It's the time of George Floyd's killing. It's the time of we're living through a moment of pivotal change, and I think we'll remember and will be remembered for what we do publicly and privately in this year. So I think we're living through it. And the weirdest part is, of course, like, I don't know about everyone else, but a lot of the last year has been quite banal in my life. Like, as I say, I've had these very happy moments, but also like, I can't leave my flat. I can't do my job mostly. Or if I do, I have to do it in completely different ways. So I have to reinvent myself as a creative person at the same time as trying to play some sort of political role as an active citizen. I'm trying to keep a business running. Like, this moment, I think, this is the time. This is the time that we will be remembered for. I hadn't really thought that until you asked that question, Yasmina. So thanks.
Thank you for your answer.
I think it's really interesting. I know what I hope we will be remembered for, but whether that is actually the case, because Tom really well touched upon some things. I think what's really interesting is that but Beneath the City in its original form was questioning something before it it kind of massively came up into the public kind of mainstream with Black Lives Matter. I mean, that's what the show was about originally, was questioning police brutality, and in particular against young Black men. So it's really interesting for that to have been what our show was around, and to then have the murder of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. And I think that's what's really interesting, is that we were making a point in that show and trying to have those conversations and those discussions, and now we're given an opportunity to make that change happen. So for me, I think there's been so many things happening recently. I just hope that, as Tom said, that change comes, but I hope that we take advantage and the change is lasting and positive, and that we make a positive difference, because we have a chance to. And COP26 and climate change is happening in the UK this year. There's so many important moments that you feel you need to grab and really, I don't know, just use for positive change. So that's what I'm hoping for, and I want to be part of that. But it'll be interesting to see what actually happens, as it feels like everything is, it's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, if I can add, I think one thing that comes to light over and over again is the importance of communication and understanding more now than ever. And I think what our performance beneath the city shows, especially within kind of our group, is the fact that the more we kind of connected and the more we spoke to each other and found out about each other, the more things that we kind of learned and kind of, you know, friendships kind of blossomed because of it. But I think it's how sometimes we try to fill the gaps of the unknown. And you know, we used to, even now we used to have press conferences, and you know, the daily figures, and I'm not sure if you have it across Europe, but this is the number of deaths, this is the number of every single day for the whole year. And after a while, it seems like you just kind of think, you kind of just, either you accept that this is the kind of reality, or you kind of you become even more anxious, because you don't know where the light at the end of the tunnel is. But on the positive side, it just shows you that how, as human beings, what we are capable of potentially, that how not adaptable, resilient. And there's so many groups that have been set up during COVID. The NHS needed volunteers, and hundreds of thousands of people in the country signed up to volunteer in food banks to support their neighbors. So to focus on the positive, I think just talking is the first step. Saying hi to your neighbor, it's the beginning. Yeah, it's an olive branch to getting to know each other. And sometimes we in ourselves, in our mind, try to fill the gaps where we don't have any knowledge, and through our own lived experience and culture. And sometimes it's having that kind of humility and stepping back and saying, okay, those gaps I have in my mind, it's okay not to have all the answers. And it's okay also to be wrong. And it's okay to change and adapt as well. And I think on a final point, you know, we're here from a few different countries, yet COVID has kind of, that's our shared experience in the moment, and we can all feel whether those that have been poorly or those haven't, but this is our lived experience that we're sharing together. And hopefully when we do come out of this for us could then kind of bring those kind of human relationships together.
Thank you.
Maybe to add quickly, should I add something, or do you want to carry on? Okay. No, I just wanted to add to this is, I think, because you asked the question, how would these times or this generation will be remembered in the future? And I think it will be remembered as the times when we found out how lost we really were actually. Because I think that's something I realized, is that I think we as a society, and I speak now globally, I think, is we really thought that things are going in a certain direction. And I think some things can never be changed or will always be like that or so. And I think in what I realized in this year or so, in last year, is how lost we really were in not just me personally, privately, but politicians, everybody, systems, how lost they really were, and how poorly some of them were really set up. And we always thought, oh, they will take care of us, or people will know how it goes if we don't know it ourselves. And we relied on those systems and all those people. And then suddenly we found out, oh no, it's actually not that easy. And it was never that easy. It was never that easy, but now we just found out. And I think, and to be positive about this, I think, not negative, because being lost sounds very negative, obviously, or very hopeless. And I think it's not hopeless, because I think from that maybe we cannot learn anything from it, because I truly believe that it's very difficult to learn something from history, even though there is this saying we can learn from history. But I don't think this is true, because the circumstances are so complex that not any other situation in history is ever the same. So that's why we cannot learn from history. And it would be stupid to think that we can learn from this situation, because this situation will never reoccur in the exactly same thing again. So, but I think what we can still take away from this is that we try to be a little bit more open towards a bit more, how should I say, a bit more not open, but listen more carefully sometimes, and listen more and listen between the lines, and not believe things that are being said, that are being put out on the internet or whatever. And I think this is maybe, hopefully this will change, because I think things were told to us that we believe, because it worked. It always worked, and it worked for us, and especially for Western society, it worked flawlessly. It was brilliant up to this point, you could say, compared to what came after it. And I think maybe we can take it from there. Maybe this, when afterward, because it's difficult to make any predictions how history will have been written. But I think maybe this is something that people look back and see there was some sort of awakening, or the innocence was gone. I don't know, or there was new innocent. I don't know, something like that.
Okay, so the person who will assemble the lost piece of memory about us, we hope he, she, or I don't know what gender would be, like, will be very kind to the memory of us. We have some questions or comments on the sidebar. I don't know if we should read them out loud, because
we can read this from here, maybe.
From Aaron Hernandez Farfan, I hope I read the name correctly. It shocked me brutally to realize how global these Robocop figures are all over the world, but not only those. In Mexico, we also faced that racist repression. Among other intolerance manifestations, the most recent example that comes to mind are the feminist protesters facing an iron fence. The image ended up being similar to the Berlin Wall, but to precisely hear our voices to create a chorus seems to me like the primal community form. Thank you.
And also we have one question from Christina, but on other chat, and she have a question for Tom. She said, your performance is very connected to your context, to the British social circumstances. What was the plan before COVID-19? How to transfer the performance in another context?
It's a really good question. Before COVID, we were planning to bring Beneath the City, obviously, to the festivals in Graz and in Munich and in Skopje. And we knew when we were creating the show that we were making a very, very culturally and politically specific piece. And one thing that I'm very passionate about, I said on this channel before this evening's shows, is that the chorus for me are the representatives of the people on stage. So the group of people who we have from Birmingham, who come from this hugely diverse range of backgrounds, some of whom had professional acting experience and some didn't, alongside two actors who were sort of the designated professionals in that show. we put together something that was absolutely about the British experience, and thanks to Zodwa and the insight that she brought, obviously also very much about the Black British experience, which, as is clear, I think it is not my lived experience either. We wanted to make something that felt like it reflected the reality of the country that we live in, and I think it was very clear to me in early conversations with the international teams on the Chorus project that where we are in Britain and where we are in Austria and Macedonia and in Germany, you know, we're all coming from different places. But the beauty of something like the Chorus project is that we have the same inspiration, we have the same starting point, but that idea is brought through like the lens of our specific cultural circumstance. And so the sort of dream version was that we would try to bring as many of the choruses as we could to perform at Mukitzer, to perform at Theater am Lande in Graz, to perform at Pathos Theater in Munich. And of course, none of that can happen. So it was a very ambitious plan, and it in the parallel universe in which there is no COVID pandemic, I think we'd have done all sorts of crazy things to try and get so many people to 4 different places in Europe to perform. But I think it's exciting to me to think of that there was an image of Britain that I think I want to project, and it's kind of the diametric opposite of the one that our government seems to revel in projecting, which is that, you know, we are in some ways a young country, we are a diverse country, we are a post-colonial country, we are, some of us at least, are trying to come to terms with some of what those things mean. And we can only really do that in the arts by being very clear, very open, and very honest about the circumstances in which we're making work. And I think there's something about making a piece of work that uncompromisingly is set in the city in which it was made that feels really important, and actually feels even more important within the wider European context. There's been a few conversations that we've had within the Chorus project about whether we should talk about Upstart Theatre as being a theatre company in London, which is where I'm sitting right now, or whether we should talk about the show, because the show is proudly made in Birmingham. And yeah, I think it's so much about place, and it's so much about experience. But I think for me, all the bits of art that I love the most are ones that absolutely embrace the here and now, as well as the kind of epic story that's behind them. And that's why we made this particular show in the way that we did. I hope that answers Christine's question.
Thank you all for all your eloquent questions. The time is up. We should conclude our conversation. And this is our last live digital activity of the Chorus project. Tomorrow, our viewers can see all 4 parts of Orestea, one after another, on the links that you have on our website, chorusproject.com, and also on mukatsa.com. But before we send us off, I would like us to be kind to each other, and I would like us to give us a round of applause for our greatly done job all these 3 years, and I will start first.
Yeah. This applause goes to everyone that was somehow connected, all members of the Chorus project and everybody who was connected with us on different ways. Thank you to everybody, and enjoy tomorrow our performances again, and see you again in the future, lively, but maybe like this on Zoom or some other platforms.
Some English pub drinking beer, some pub in Munich or in Graz.
And in Skopje, Kafana is always here.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being part of all of this.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.